Hey, it's Jerry Norton here, and welcome to the 4th floor event center at my hotel in Puerto Rico. In this video, I specifically want to talk about how to start wholesaling and walk through A to Z, start to finish, how to set up a wholesaling business and each thing you need to do in the exact order to do it so that you can begin wholesaling houses.
For a limited time, you can get a free copy of Jerry Norton's Quick Start Kit with everything you need to flip your first house in 30 days or less. Download it now at myquickstartkit.com.
Now, before we dive into this, I do want to set the tone here, the context to what wholesaling is. Wholesaling is where you simply go out and find a distressed seller and you contract a property at a discount. And then once you've executed that contract, you have that written agreement, you're going to turn around then and find an end buyer, we call it, or a cash buyer who's looking for a property like that in that neighborhood, in that market, that will buy that property. And what you're going to do then is you're going to act as a middleman and you're going to assign that contract to that cash buyer for a fee, right? For an additional price. And then they're going to step in and they're going to take over the contract. They're going to close with the seller and they're going to pay you that difference, which we call our profit as wholesaling. You never actually own the property. You never actually fix it up. Go out and find great deals, pass those off to other investors. They step in, buy them, and fix them up and rent them, or fix them up and flip them and do their thing. This is a great strategy, and when you learn how to do this well at a high level like I do, you can actually make millions of dollars a year doing this. So you can do multiple deals a month. You can make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 or more per deal, but you gotta learn how to do it right. Now, one of the things I really talk about quite a bit is the fundamentals of wholesaling, because the goal here isn't to just do a deal, but really it's to set up a business that consistently does deals every month. What I want to do is I want to share with you and walk you through how you would do that in a wholesale business. So first thing that we're going to talk about is setting up your business. Setting up your business. So the reason why I think this is important, and we're going to talk about this first, is because when you set up a business, mentally you're overcoming a roadblock where you're treating it now like a real thing. You're taking it seriously. And so there's 3 things that you need to do to set up a business. The first thing is going to be your entity. You want to set up an entity. This would be your operating company. And this entity you can set up yourself. It's pretty easy. You can go to the state website, go to the state.gov website. You can search the name you want, see if it's available, pay the state a fee. Typically in wholesale, we do an LLC. Gives you the most flexibility. It's got great tax benefits. The second thing is going to be your tax ID. You have to get a tax ID number so you can file for taxes. That's really simple too. It's a form. You can actually call and do it over the phone. So once you have those 2 things, you're going to open a bank account. Now, this could be a lot of work. Maybe you're confused by that. I refer all of my students to Prime Corporate Service. They specialize in real estate. They don't just do entity formations. They do tax returns and business consulting, lines of credit, and all kinds of things. I'll put a link in the description below. You can set up a free call and they'll walk you through if you need to do that. Now, the question I get all the time is, do I need to set up the business before I do my first deal? And the answer is no. I talk about this right now because why not? Why not get set up right from the beginning? But if you don't have the time or the money and you just need to get straight to a deal, you could skip this step. But why do it? It's fairly inexpensive and it's a great way to just start out on the right foot. So if you have the ability to get your business set up, do that. Don't let this be a crutch, meaning don't say, oh, well, I can't get started yet because I don't have my business. Not true. You can actually get started and transact deals with no entity at all, okay? But step 1 would be set up that business. Okay, step 2 is to choose your market. Because one of the things you have to decide here is, are you going to do remote or what we call virtual, or are you going to do what I call your backyard, which is where you live? Like those are your 2 choices. Are you going to pick a virtual market somewhere other than where you live? Maybe you live in New York City and you don't want to do New York City, or you live in San Diego and you don't want to do San Diego. You can pick a virtual market. So you could live in Phoenix, Arizona and do deals in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? You can do that. Or you could say, no, I want to be in my backyard, right where I live. It's the market I know and I want to do deals there. It's very, very important that you get clear on this. Put some thought into this because wholesaling is very market specific. It's a geographical thing. So if you start to invest in a market and then change your mind later, you start all the way over from ground zero when you switch markets. Market hopping is one of the worst things you can do in this business because you have to start over every time you do that. So Nothing's wrong if that has to happen, but try to think through it and avoid that happening. Think about, do I really want to be in the market I'm familiar with, or do I want to find a new market? Now let's talk about some pros and cons. Virtual is great because setting up a virtual wholesale business means that you can do deals from anywhere because you're doing it from the kitchen table or your home office or the beach or while you're on vacation. Now, I've done virtual markets for years. I got started in wholesaling 20 years ago, and I've been doing virtual wholesaling for a long time. And it provides a lot of benefit. The downside is you're in a market that you aren't physically in, so that means you have to rely heavily on what we call boots on the ground. So if you ever need to get eyes on something, you've got to have a team in place to go do that. Maybe you need to walk a property real quick, meet a seller, things like that. It's going to be important that you set that up because you're not there. I have an entire reference on how to do boots on the ground, how to get someone to go do virtual inspections, how to do photos and pictures for you, and all of that. It's a free resource. I'll give it to you for free. I'll put a link in the description below. And I also have an entire virtual wholesaling guide that I'll give to you for free. Walks you through all of the steps to how to get set up virtually. Now, even though you can do this virtually, I still highly recommend that you choose a market, meaning don't go nationwide where I'm going to do deals anywhere and everywhere. That's going to be really hard. I know some people that do that well, but very few people are able to do that at a high level. Better to pick a specific market and learn the market. I call this investing in your market. Take the time to learn. What are the good areas? What are the bad areas? What are the good school districts? Is that side of the road better than that side of the road? Where are the transitions in neighborhoods? And that takes time. That takes really looking at a lot of homes, looking at a lot of values, talking to real estate agents, talking to other investors. But the better you learn a market, the better you'll be able to do deals in that market. So for example, I started in Metro Detroit. So in those areas of Oakland County and Macomb County, millions of people, multiple towns, hundreds of zip codes, I know those two counties really, really well. And so when an opportunity pops up, a distressed property pops up in one of those cities there, I can very quickly get my head around what's going on because I know those cross streets, I know that area, I know generally what's going on, I know what investors think, where they want to be, where they don't want to be. Why? Because I've invested so much time learning that market. So if you're new to this, then that's going to be a disadvantage if you choose a virtual market because you got to get your head around it. Whereas your backyard, you've already got an advantage because you live there. And even if you're new to real estate, you know how to get your way around town. You know where the hospital is, and you know where people want to be. You know where the downtown is, and where the desirable parts of town are, where the places you want to stay away from are. You know that because you live there, right? So you've gotten your head around that just by default of being in the market. So that gives you an advantage. You can also touch it, see it, feel it. Sometimes that's beneficial. Sometimes that's not beneficial. Meaning I have to be very resourceful in virtual markets because I'm not there. So it keeps me out of the trenches, keeps me higher level because I'm not getting sucked into going and looking at everything or meeting a contractor or whatever, right? So when I say a backyard market, what I really want to do is become a local expert. And I want to get known in the community. I want all the investors to know who I am. I want to start to build relationships so that I'm getting referrals now from title companies and agents and, like I said, other investors and everybody in that market. I want them to know who I am and establish a presence, a brand, so to say. And the other benefit is I also want to go on appointments. So I don't want to close on the phone if I don't have to. Now I'll do it, and I do it quite a bit, and I'm really good at it, and you can learn how to be really good at it too. But there's something about meeting a seller belly to belly, eyeball to eyeball at the kitchen table. In a competitive market, that is going to give you a competitive advantage. You're going to walk out of that appointment with a contract over somebody who's talking to that seller on the phone only. Okay, so I feel a lot of benefit in that. Now again, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to do that. I've built businesses now where I have partners and operators on the ground going on appointment and a sales team and so on. But to start out, you will be at a great advantage if you can go on that appointment, meet that seller in person versus trying to do it on the phone. So pros and cons there. A couple other tips on choosing your market. You want to make sure that you're in a metro market or close to a metro market. The reason why is because you want to have enough opportunity or enough deals to do And if you're too remote, you're gonna struggle to find enough opportunity. So here's some rules I have. I wanna be, wherever I'm looking at deals, I want it to be within a 45-minute drive to a major metro. And the major metro needs to be, 500,000 in population, let's say, ideally 1 million in population. And you wanna stay within a radius of about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And the reason why is because if you get a great deal, wholesaling is all about the exit. It's finding a buyer for that deal. And if you're outside of that metro, the buyer pool drops off significantly. Whereas if you're within an hour, there's gonna be lots of buyers that are gonna be interested in that deal. Cash buyers will leave the city and they'll go about 45 minutes or an hour out to do a deal, whether it's a rental or a flip or whatever. But you start pushing outside of that, and you're gonna have a really hard time moving your deals. I remember one time I was buying properties at an auction, and these were rural properties, and I was buying them for 20 cents on the dollar at the auction. And I thought, man, I'm getting some smoking deals. I did on the buy, like the buy was amazing, I got these great deals, but on my flip, on my exit, I had a really hard time finding buyers for those properties because I was just too rural. It was just too far away, and my buyer pool was very small. So it hurt me on the back end, right? So we want to be careful of that. Okay, the third thing we need to do now, once we have our entity set up, once we've chosen our market, is we have to start generating leads. This business is all about lead generation. A lead is simply a distressed property or a distressed seller. It could be one of the two, usually both. So a distressed property means the property's been neglected, could be in original condition, but it needs work to bring it up to the highest value it can get. We call that after repair value. A distressed seller is a seller who's usually it's a financial distress. And this could be they're going through a divorce, a bankruptcy. It could be that they're a tired landlord and they're burned out from rentals. Could be that they inherited the property and they don't want it and they need to get rid of it quickly. Could be they lost their job. There's dozens of reasons why a seller could be distressed financially. It could be that they just want to stop the bleeding, I call it, where they're just tired of paying taxes and upkeep on a property. Maybe they got a job transfer and they didn't sell the property or couldn't sell it. All kinds of reasons why a seller would be in distress. Now, why is that what we're looking for? Because remember, our job as a wholesaler is to get a deal at a discount. And we have to be at enough of a discount to where we can take that to the market of buyers and say, hey, I've got this great deal. Here you go. You can have it at X price. And a cash buyer, an investor is going to say, that's a good deal. I want it. I'll buy it. And you got it at a low enough discount to where you can make a fee on it. You can mark it up and make a profit bringing that to the market. Now, cash buyers love wholesalers because wholesalers do all of the work to find these distressed properties and sellers and bring those to them. Because a cash buyer, remember, they want to do their thing. They want to rent properties or they want to fix up properties and flip them. They don't want to do acquisition. So this is where generating leads is the lifeblood of a wholesale operation. If you cannot generate enough leads every single day, you won't have enough opportunities that will turn into deals that you can then make money on. So you have to become a master now at lead generation. And these are the things that we look for. One is like I mentioned a second ago, and that is there's some sort of distress going on. Like I said, bankruptcy, divorce, all these different things that could be happening. We need to identify, is there distress here? Is there urgency? Urgency means they need to sell that property fairly quickly to solve the problem. They got to get rid of this property in their life. So there needs to be some urgency. If there's no urgency, there's no motivation. Why sell it? I'll just wait. The third one is condition. The property needs to be in poor condition. And then the fourth one here is the seller's willing to take a discount. Now, why would a motivated seller that fits this category, why would they sell that property at a discount? There's two reasons. For the speed and convenience. Speed and convenience. They would rather take cash right now, sell at a discount for speed and convenience versus all the work that it will go into fixing it up, doing showings, inspections, appraisals, financing, all the work that it would go into to try to sell it for a higher price. They would rather have speed and convenience, close quickly, take the cash today, and be done with the property. That's where we come in as wholesalers. That's the value we provide to distressed sellers in this situation. And this makes up, by the way, about 5 to maybe 10% of the marketplace at any given time. What that means is it means most of the time when you do lead gen, you're going to be talking to unmotivated sellers or not motivated enough sellers. We're looking for the 5% of the marketplace that fits this category and will take a discount. And now the question you need to be asking yourself is, okay, well, how do I find these types of sellers? Where are they? Where do they hang out? How do I find them? Well, there's 2 ways to do that. We're going to classify all leads under basically 2 categories. One is on market, and on market simply means that it's listed for sale with a real estate agent. So think about it. You got a seller, they've got this property they don't want, needs work, or they're in distress, and they're like, okay, I got to get rid of this property. I got to sell it. I'm going to hire a real estate agent to sell that property. The second one is just off market, and that just means that we're going to work directly with the seller. There's no agents involved. It's off market. Another way we look at on market, we call this direct to agent, DTA, or we call this one direct to seller, DTS. This is where we go into some methods. We can do free, we can do low cost, and we can do expensive. There are several free techniques that we can do to get in front of these leads. We could do some low cost methods that don't cost very much, but a little bit to get in front of them. And then we could do some very expensive marketing and get in front of some sellers that way. So what do? You're starting out, you're new in the business. How do you choose which one to do? Well, I recommend everybody, whether you've got experience or not, start out with free. Do the free methods. Don't spend money on marketing. First, see if you can generate some deals using the free. Maybe do some low cost. I'm okay with that too. Do some low cost methods, but get some deals done. Do a handful of deals. Then take that profit and start to reinvest it into systems and tools, into marketing, and into training. And that's how you're gonna start to go from nothing to something. That's how you build the business on top of itself, is what I like to think about it. You're gonna self-fund or self-grow your own wholesale business. And by the way, this is how I started. I had no money for marketing, and I had to generate deals without spending any money on marketing, and then I would build up from there. Today, fortunately, I can spend a lot of money on really high effective, expensive marketing like Google ads and things like that get me really great leads so I can do really great deals. But you gotta start somewhere and build up from there. So let me take a minute here while we're on this step here with generating leads, and let me give you a couple of resources that I think will be really, really helpful. I developed a method that is on market that is extremely effective, and I call it the 5-5-5 method. And this is a free method because it's on market, it's working with agents. So this 5-5-5 method, what this means, and I'll give it to you in a nutshell, but I want you to watch another video I did where I go into great detail and break this down into a full-on training on how to do this at a really high level. So we call it 5-5-5 because we're gonna talk to 5 properties that are listed, and we're gonna call the agent directly that has the listing on that property. And so the first 5 calls we do daily, guys, this is a daily thing. I'm gonna call 5 listed properties, and I'm gonna talk to that agent, and I'm gonna make an offer on that property that's for sale, actively listed. And I have a tool that generates these for you. It's called mydatacruncher.com. It's free, by the way. You can download this tool for free. It's gonna give you all of the listed distressed properties that are actively for sale in any zip code. It's really cool. Start there, and you're gonna call 5 of them. You're gonna make offers. Now we'll talk about the offer process in a minute. You're also gonna call 5, this is just outreach, we call this. Just cold call 5 agents in your market. It could be any agent. Doesn't matter if they have a property for sale or not. You're gonna call them, and you're basically gonna say, hey, I'm looking for real estate deals. Do you have anything coming up? Is there anything I can take a look at? Do you know any sellers right now that have a distressed property they want to sell? And then the other 5 is going to be follow-up. So you're just going to be following up with these agents you've previously talked to. So next week, I'm going to be calling the agents I talked to last week, and I'm going to say, hey, it's Jerry again. Remember we spoke last week? Just checking in. You got anything coming up? Anything I can do for you? Looking for deals. And so if you do this every day, 5, 5, 5, that's 15 quality conversations a day with agents. If you do that, it takes about 2 to 3 hours, and again, I map this all out, I give you scripts, I give you everything in that free training, I'll put a link in the description, then you will be doing your first deal in the next 30 days. You will be getting a deal a month because all the stars are gonna align, you're in the right place at the right time, you're having enough conversations, you're generating enough leads to be getting a deal. And as you get better at this, you can increase those ratios from lead to contract. That's on market, totally free. Doesn't cost you a dime. Takes 2 to 3 hours a day. What's the secret ingredient? Consistency. This is where everybody blows it. They're not consistent. They're hot, they're cold, they do it today, they don't do it tomorrow, and they wonder why they don't get results. If you want this to work, you gotta plow through, you gotta do it every day like clockwork and not miss. It's the consistency that wins in this business. Now let's talk about off market. The best way to do this is with Propwire. Now, Propwire is a free seller database, over 157 million records nationwide, and you can search and download as much data as you want for free. No monthly subscription, no data upsells. It's the second largest seller data software on the marketplace, and it's the only one that's totally free. When you go on there, you're gonna do searches, and you're gonna be searching, you have to pick the different lead types you want. And I did a training where I show how to list stack, we call it, where what you're gonna do is you're gonna stack multiple leads together, and you're gonna get a very highly concentrated list. So let me walk through that list stack real quick. Again, I have an entire training on how to do this in more detail. I'm gonna walk through it high level. But first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pick absentee owners. Absentee simply means that they don't live in the property. Now, this is usually gonna be a buy and hold investor. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick out of state. So not only do they not live in the property, but they actually live in another state. Then we're gonna pick what we call tired landlord. Now, we define tired as they've owned the property for at least 10 years. And we're gonna pick vacant. It's vacant, meaning it's not earning income. That's gonna create motivation. And then the fifth one is it has high equity. If we're gonna buy it at a discount, we need them to be able to sell it at a discount. This is the power list. This is my gold list, right? And so if you go pick a metro market and you put in these 5 filters and you stack it all together, you're gonna get a very small list. This list might be anywhere from 50 to 250, depending on the market that you're in. Now what do? You got this really great list. You're gonna skip trace this. Now, right in Propwire, you can skip trace. There is a cost to that, but it's very inexpensive. So if you go to propwiregold.com, so you're gonna skip trace. So what is skip tracing? That means you're gonna get the phone numbers. So you get the phone numbers of that list, and now you're going to personally call these leads. You're not gonna outsource that or hire somebody, you're gonna do that. Why? Because it's a great list and it's not that many. You can do it. And then you're gonna pick up the phone, you're gonna call them, and you're gonna say, hey, I noticed that you have a property on 123 Main Street. I'm calling to see if you're interested in selling. We're looking to buy. I can make you a cash offer. Are you interested? And you're trying to find if somebody in there is going to be motivated. Now, here's my experience. We close with this list about 1 in 50 leads. So if I can get in front of 50, now that's conversations, I'm going to get a deal out of 50. Now, I'm not even going to go into the expensive stuff. That's something that you'll learn as you go through your journey. But there are ways where you can spend quite a bit of money and get in front of really highly qualified inbound leads, people calling you, but those are expensive marketing. So we'll save that for later. I'm just trying to get you off the ground and going here. Okay, so now let's go to step number 4, and that is the offer process. So we've generated these leads, and now what? We got to make an offer. Well, how do you know what price to offer that's going to be a good deal that you can wholesale for a profit? Like, that's the question we all ask. I think one of the biggest mistakes or one of the biggest things that hold people back in wholesale real estate is analysis paralysis. They get so hung up on running the numbers to get to an offer price. We call this our max allowable offer, MAO. They get so hung up on that it freezes them and they don't even make offers, and they just kind of stops them dead in their tracks. So I developed a very unique offer system that requires no comping and no estimating repairs. We're gonna go onto the big websites like Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, and we're gonna get their estimated values that they give. We're gonna combine those, we're gonna get an average. We're gonna use an algorithm that's gonna determine a discount off of that number minus our wholesale fee to get to our offer price. And I'll give this to you for free. It's a calculator that I created. I think it's called Free Offer Calculator. I'll put the link on the screen or in the description. but you can download that for free. Again, I also have an entire training on the offer process on how to do this really well. But here's the thing I want you to really grasp right now. There is a big difference between your offer price and your contract price. Offer price and contract price. Now, what's the difference? Well, when we're talking to sellers and it's time to put an offer in front of them, that offer does not need to be accurate. So get this out of your head. It doesn't need to be accurate. It doesn't need to be right. All it needs to be is low enough. Low enough. Because our initial offer is what we call an anchor. It's going to be low. Here's the sellers, maybe up here. Maybe they give you a price here. Most sellers are going to give you the Zillow number, which is the as-is value. You're going to anchor low, and they're going to say, there's no way I can go down that low. And you're going to say, okay, well, how close to that number can you get? And then they're going to come down and you're going to come up somewhere. You're going to uncover motivation. The point of an offer is not to get a deal. It's to uncover motivation. Are they serious about selling at a discount? If they counter back or they are somewhere in the ballpark of where we made that offer, then now we know, okay, there's some serious motivation here. Now, step two, let's look at numbers. Let's look at condition. Let's see where we need to land. Let's make sure we get the contract price correct. But out of the gate, all I really need to do is put an offer in front of a seller low enough and see what they do. When you grasp this concept, everything will change about this business. I make offers day in and day out, every single day. You can watch me do this on my YouTube channel without ever looking at value or spending very little bit of time. I just run a very quick formula, says, okay, this is where I need to be, that's super low. I put that in front of them. I see what they do. If they don't budge off of too high, then I know I need to move on or follow up. If they give me a number that's down there somewhere in the deal range, then okay, let's keep talking. Let's take a look at this. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on. Let me look at some values. You don't need to understand all of that to get great deals or to make offers. You just need to be low enough. Okay, so now step 5 is, once we've calculated the offer, step 5 is actually to make the offer. Actually make the offer. So many people in this business, they calculate an offer price, and let's just hypothetically say that, wow, this would be a great deal at 100,000, and the seller says, I want 200,000, and you're like, oh, you know what, we don't have a deal here, and okay, I'll talk to you later, and you move on, rather than making that formal offer. So what I like to do is I like to do 2 things. First, step 1 is I like to do a verbal offer, and I do this on market and off market. So I'll say to the seller, I need to be in the low 100s. That's my low anchor. I need to be in the high 200s. I need to be around 100. It's a vague ballpark low offer anchor number, right? It's our anchor. And I do that verbally. And then I see how they respond, negotiate from there. Hopefully they come down quite a bit. I come up a little bit, and I want to land at the number that I feel really good about. I'm going to do a verbal, and we're going to follow up then with a written offer. But we have to get to that written offer. We don't have a deal unless we have it in writing. Okay, the written contract is what binds the agreement. It's what commits the seller and you to a deal. There's some nuance to that. What do you include in that contract? What's the right way to do this? How do I disclose properly that I'm wholesaling? So you want to make sure that you get this part right. And again, I have a detailed training on how to write these offers, and I actually give away my contracts for free. You can go to wholesalercontracts.com. I think that's the link. I'll put it right here across the screen. But that link will get you my free contracts. I've spent thousands of dollars in legal fees updating these contracts. But you need to make sure that you follow the laws in your state. You understand what the regulations are in your state. There are several states that have regulation. They might require some form of disclosure. They might require licensing. Some states are trying to stop it altogether. So you need to be aware of this. I have a free report that I keep, wholesaleregulations.com. You can download that. I break it down by state, what you can and can't do. Okay, so understand that. Understand how to do the offer correctly. Understand how to communicate correctly with sellers. I'll give you my contracts for free. And like all the other steps, I'll put a link where you can get some great training on how to do this correctly. Okay, so that's step 5 is actually making that offer. And one thing to keep in mind here is that if this property is on market and it's listed with an agent, the agent actually writes the offer and uses their state-approved contracts. But you still need to tell the agent what you want in your offer. So I came up with a 10-point checklist. I call it my offer sheet. I fill it out. I give it to the agent. It's got everything that they need to then write the offer for you. I'll give you that checklist for free as well. I'll put the links in the description so you make sure that that agent has everything you need to give you a wholesaler-friendly contract. Once we've done that and we now have an executed contract with a seller, step 6 is to open escrow. And what that means is it means we need to go to a title or a attorney, depending on what state you're in. Some states close deals with attorneys. Some states close deals with title companies. You're gonna take your contract to the title or the attorney and you're gonna say, hey, I need you to run title. I need you to prepare for a closing. They're gonna look at your contract and say, okay, we need to be ready in 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whenever the closing is. And they're gonna make sure that you have the right seller on title, that there's nothing going on with title, and they're gonna get everything ready for a closing. So it's important you open escrow because remember, we're dealing with distressed real estate. So very often you're gonna have problems. You're gonna have an IRS tax lien or some other issue going on. Sometimes there's multiple people on title or there's somebody missing or there could be issues. So you wanna find that out sooner than later. So we open escrow right away. Now, most title companies and attorneys, they won't charge you anything. They charge their fee at the closing. So you can go ahead and open escrow. You want a title company that's familiar with investors, familiar with wholesaling. They know how to do assignments or double closings or all these different strategies that we use. The wrong title company can blow your deal. Very important you get the right title company. I'm gonna put a link in the description below as well for a nationwide investor-friendly title company that I recommend you use. This will make sure that you've got the right title company for your deal wherever your market is. The next step here is it's time to find a cash buyer. So we've got our deal, we've opened escrow. Now we need to find a buyer for our deal. How do we find these cash buyers? If you go back onto Propwire, you can actually find cash buyers. And I've got some videos that shows exactly how to go in there, where to find them, how to filter them. Absolutely free to search and download cash buyers. So here's a technique that I like to do. I call it the neighborhood flipper method. And the idea behind this strategy, which is extremely effective, the reason why I love this so much is because your ideal buyer for your deal is somebody active, local, and in the same market as your deal. So if we look at like a map, let's say that here's your deal on 123 Main Street. Your best buyer would be someone who did a deal here, did a deal here, did a deal here, if these were all houses and those were cash buyers that are flipping houses, those are your best buyers. Why? Because investors love to do deals in the same neighborhoods where they've previously done deals. Makes sense, right? Hey, I know that neighborhood, I've got contractors, I know the values, I'm set up there, I'd love to have another rental or I'd love to flip another property in that neighborhood. Now, there could be an investor way over here that would buy your deal. They're still a great buyer, but we're starting from somewhere. So where do we start from? Pick investors in your neighborhood. So on Propwire, you can actually do a search. You can put a filter in there. You can search. You can do this also on Zillow. Now, how do you know these are investors? Well, when you look at the property, there are 3 things. Is it all fixed up? Brand new kitchen, brand new flooring, everything nice, everything new, everything updated. That's a rehabber. That's a flipper. Is it vacant? There's no personal stuff. There's no clothes in the closet. That's a flipper because they fixed it up and it's vacant. And the third one is it staged? That's another indicator that it's a flipper. Now, what happens when you find this person right here? I can see it's all fixed up, it's vacant, it's nice, that's a flipper. Now what? Well, the fastest way to get a hold of that flipper would be to call the agent that listed the property. So if this was a sold flip, you call up the agent, you say, hey, I see that you represented a flipper on Stanley Street over here. I've got a deal 2 blocks over. Maybe your investor is interested. Can you talk to them and see if they want to take a look at it? Now that agent's going to be highly motivated because if that cash buyer buys your deal, that's another listing for that agent. They're bringing value to their cash buyer, right? So they win too. So it doesn't cost you anything. And I found that if I can have 12 to 15 flippers in the neighborhood, one of them is going to want my deal, assuming I have a good deal. So it's a very effective way. This is the thing that I try to teach people is you don't need a big list of cash buyers. You need a cash buyer for your deal. So if you've got a great deal, it just takes one buyer. And now you want to build the list in time, right? That's a good idea. But in the beginning, all you need to do is find who are the local flippers, how do I get in front of them, how do I tell them about my deal, and move it that way. Now, there are lots of other ways to find cash buyers, but this is by far the most effective way to find a buyer for your deal where you have no list, no contacts, don't know anybody, and you're just getting started. And now what? You find that cash buyer. Let's say that your contract price that you have the deal for is $100,000, and you take that to your cash buyer and they agree to pay $110,000. And you have right here this contract, which is a purchase and sale agreement. And now this guy agrees to buy the deal for $110,000. So what you're gonna do is what we call an assignment. And this assignment for $110,000 says that they will take over this contract and they'll pay $110,000. So on the day of closing, what happens? Cash buyer is going to come to closing $110,000. 100 goes to the seller and 10 goes to you, the wholesaler. So they pay 110, 100 to the seller, which is what you agreed to originally. 10 goes to you. You walk out of closing with $10,000. Everybody wins. Seller's happy, they got the 100 they wanted. Buyer's happy, they paid 110, which was a good deal for them, and you made $10,000. Why? Because you put it all together. You found the deal, you found the buyer, you brought the two together, and you put the deal together. Which, by the way, guys, just so you know, I actively flip nationwide. I've got systems, processes, and capital in place. My investors just talked to me and said, Jerry, I've got $50 million that we want to put on the streets on deals. Bring me more deals. So I have a finder program. I've had it for many years. It's called my10kcheck.com is where you can go and register for a training and learn how you can find deals for me, and I'll pay you $10,000 for every deal you find that meets my criteria. Okay, it's really cool. It's a great way to get started. I'll be your buyer. You don't have to find a buyer. You can skip step 7 because I'll be your buyer and just go find a great deal that meets my criteria. So again, my10kcheck.com to register for training, get all the details and learn how to be in that finder program. By the way, this goes without saying, but once you have your assignment, you're then going to take that assignment back to your closing agent that you opened escrow with, and you're gonna say, hey, I'm assigning my contract, here's the executed assignment. They're gonna have already the purchase and sale agreement between you and the seller. Now they have the assignment between you and the cash buyer, and if they're wholesaler friendly, they know what that means, what they're gonna do, and they'll get ready for closing, and they'll know that there's an end buyer coming with 110 in our example, and they're gonna know how to put that all together and close the deal. So on the day of closing, you're going to attend in person or virtual. I don't go to any closings. I haven't been to a closing in who knows how long. Actually, I take that back. I have a closing later this afternoon that I'm attending here in Puerto Rico. But you don't have to go to the closing. But at the closing is when the transaction funds, cash buyer brings in the money, seller gets paid out, you get your wire or check for your wholesale fee, $10,000. And that closing then is a successful, completed transaction. Now, from start to finish, you get a contract with a seller. Maybe there's lead up and build up time, doing lead gen. But from the contract with the seller to the closing, this typically is a 3 to 4 week time frame. So what that means, guys, is it means if you follow all these steps I outlined on this video, and you do the lead gen, and you get in front of enough leads, and you talk to enough agents or sellers, and you get that great deal, and you contract that deal with that seller, and you do my neighborhood flipper model, and then you lock the deal up, and then you close 3 weeks later. Guys, you could literally be looking at, a $10,000 check in as little as 30 days. This is actually something that you can do right now, get started, and be transacting deals very quickly and be making a lot of money. Imagine doing this 5 times a month. And that's what happened to me. I got started in this business 20 years ago. I was willing to hustle, work hard, and I got to where I was doing on average about 5 deals a month and making anywhere from, at the time, $25,000 to $50,000 a month wholesaling houses. It was absolutely incredible. Allowed me to become a millionaire by the age of 30, started at 27, transitioned into flipping, and now doing all kinds of different real estate transactions. I'm standing right now in my hotel in Puerto Rico that I own. right? I've got a luxury multi-million-dollar project I'm building, right here in Puerto Rico as well. So it opened the door and created this gateway into all kinds of other things and still building a wholesale business. So it's been tremendous. It's given me the life of my dreams, and I know it can do the same for you, but you've got to get started. Now, I'm a big believer in taking action, so I've given you so much to do on this one video. Lots of resources, lots of additional videos that will help deep dive into these topics. But at the end of the day, there's only one thing that's gonna make the difference between you being the 1% that get into this business and actually be successful and the 99 that quit and give up, and that's taking action and being consistent. Are you willing to do this? How bad do you want this in your life to change your life and to start living your dream life? And so that's what you're gonna need to do. Take that action, be consistent with it, and you'll see results. Now, I teach how to take somebody from brand new zero, do their first deal, all the way to 6 figures in revenue, from 6 figures to scaling a 7-figure real estate business. And it's a small group, it's a small community, it's hands-on. We do training regularly. We do daily Zoom training almost every single day in my community. It's called Fast Track. If you're really serious about this business and you want to really skip to the front of the line, so to say, right? Like really get going with this well, then you need to check that out. You can go to fasttrackwithjerry.com. It is by interview and application, or application and interview only. So you'll talk to my team. We want to make sure it's a good fit. We want to make sure you're at the right place. You're going to do the work, and you're going to be someone that's teachable and committed to the business and bring value, like add to the community. Thank you guys. Let me know if this was helpful. Let me know if you have a good overview now. I know I went fast. This is sort of a long video, but I covered an entire business in, 45 minutes or whatever it is. And let me know if that was helpful. Let me know where you're stuck, questions you might have, and where I can be an additional resource for you. And I'll see you on the next video.